Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Leads podcast. And today I'm with Connor Rodich. How you doing, man?
Doing great, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. We're talking about the importance of having an integrator in your business. And this topic has been coming up on a lot of conversations recently because I see a pattern with roofing companies that go further than 5 million. And that pattern is, drum roll please, having an integrator in your business and having a mindset a little bit around that. So Connor, before we get started, we'll talk all about integrators and how to stay on the same page and common problems between visionaries and integrators. But before we get into that, give the folks a little bit of a background of your experience with roofing and you know the why they should listen to this conversation.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think what the offering from my perspective that's unique outside of some other guys that maybe talk through some integrator ideas with you is that my integration is not just specific to the trades business or to roofing or solar or anything like that. I actually have the background of corporate America and some of the unique things that come from corporate. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad, but the good in it is that you usually see that structure. You see a lot of those rapid growth methods. You see the ability to be able to kind of get it from I worked in some tech businesses. So, you know, some of that being cash injected and seeing that type of growth versus bootstrap growth and what that looks like. And so I think the uniqueness of, you know, I guess to kind of sell you on why you should listen in on this type of podcast is being able to kind of get the vantage point understanding from something that's not necessarily native to the industry and something that comes from the outside that is providing a unique perspective and a unique methodology that you could use in the roofing and solar industry, whatever trades that you're in currently. And so that's where my background from the roofing side. I had a roofing company for a little over a year and a half, did pretty well with it, but then ended up becoming the president of roofing.com through some events that unfolded, and extremely grateful for that. More recently, just got back into the roofing and solar space, doing some additional consulting as well. But through my journey and just kind of giving you that brief outlook, I've got an opportunity to see a lot of businesses, coach a lot of business, consult a lot of businesses that are all going through some of the very similar effects of having some sort of struggle around making sure that they continue to put in those pieces and fulfill at the granular level so that they can grow and take their business to the next level. So that's my quick sales pitch to you.
And I don't mean to like get all up in your business, but you did 2.2 million your first year at the roofing company. So that's unusual. That's quick.
Yeah.
So, and understanding that, I think helps people maybe listen to this and think through this a little bit. When you talk, what is an integrator? Like we're talking about integrators today and the importance of having one. What is an integrator traditionally?
Yeah. So, I mean, not to be confused, like I, whenever I'm speaking with folks and trying to make sure that it's understood what I call an integrator versus, you know, or kind of my lead integrator, the person that's really going to head up the operation. That's not to say that you don't have other integrators within the organization that aren't necessarily playing that lead integrator role, right? So I'll just make sure we're talking about the lead integrator. So that person, from my perspective and being in that role before in multiple scenarios, is making sure that that individual has a really good knowledge base of the different pieces of the business. And what I mean by that is the marketing, the sales, the operations, the finance, enough to be able to understand the high level of each of those pieces of your business. And so if you don't understand that and you're an integrator, it's going to be tough for you to be able to have those really good conversations and some of the critical problem solving that needs to take place within your organization and with your teams if you don't end up having the breadth of knowledge that you need to have around each of those individual pieces of business. So I think the number one thing is you got to have a very good understanding of how all of it works. So my number one thing I say is, you as an integrator, you have to be an orchestrator of operations as well as the orchestrator of talent, right? You have to be able to understand how that works. And then the next thing that I think really makes a strong integrator is the ability to be able to have a strong critical thinking and problem solving skill set. If you're the type of person that is kind of usually looking elsewhere for their problems to be solved or for their answers to be solved, it's probably not something that you think you maybe solve problems when in reality you're just like band-aiding something up until you actually solve the root of issues. A lot of that is, if you are a true integrator, you have the natural skill set of, and almost like an obsession of being extremely problem solving and oriented. And that's for me, I'm trying to be the where the buck stops here within the organization. If something comes up that no one else can solve, it falls on me to have to be able to solve that, right? And then the last piece is the leadership piece. So you have to be a champion of people in that type of role. You know, as a visionary and integrator dynamic, I know that's become proper terminology and something more popular these days with kind of identifying who's strong in what sense. Visionaries are usually a little bit more kind of at all costs. This is just what the vision needs to be, and this is what needs to happen. They kind of want the end product without some of the fine details needing to happen. You know, and
sounds familiar to me for some reason.
Yeah. And I'm not say that I'm not impatient or that I don't want the same things, but people are your profit, right? Like people in the process, you have to be a champion of people. You have to understand that. And it can't be faked. It can't be something that's like, oh, I'm going to fake like I care about you. Like you genuinely, not to say that you're always nice to people or that you're always going to be, you know, the cheerleader when hey, they're not meeting a sales number or they're not doing this. Like obviously there has to be accountability in the organization, but that has to be the first thing that comes out of your bag of tools, is that you care about people more than, you want the outcome obviously, but people are what's going to allow you to get to your outcome. You know what I mean? So that's kind of, those are my three things. If I was
so good. That's so good. And so this is not something I said I was going to ask, but I think it begs the question. If you are a visionary type person, let's say you're a little, the age old ideas like that, it's a scatterbrained, like mad scientist, like you're saying, like, or just very intense and maybe not always understanding there's going to be a lot of hard details here.
Yeah.
And maybe they're used to having propped up by other people helping with the details. But if you don't have an integrator yet, where do you find these people? I mean, you're talking about somebody that's got a lot of skills, and like, let's say operations, sales, finance, and marketing, at least a broad understanding of them to be able to orchestrate them together. And also they have to be able to play with people dynamics. Like, who is this person? How do you find one? What do they come out of traditionally? Are they coming out of like, what did you go to school for?
I was just a business major. I mean, I
graduated. Is that what they go to school for? Like, where are these people come on?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, marketing and sales degree is what I have. So, and what's funny is like, the branding, importance of branding and importance of sales process is important to me, but I'm not a marketer and I'm not a salesperson. I'm kind of bad at both, to be honest. I don't know, man. I mean, I think, so where you find those people, if I was to give you a short answer, would be, you're not always going to find them. A lot of times it's about kind of breeding them within your organization and finding that people have the skill set. I find that the best integrators are people that learn the quickest. So people that have the ability to like be told something once and then it's done and they never have to be told again because they understand how that works. That's a skill set that I really do believe that you're just born with. I think that that's not something that you can be I'm not like a book smart guy. For example, like for me, I'm not a guy that's like sitting there studying, doing all this stuff. I'm better at like, okay, absorb the information, do it one time, know how to do it, know what to do next and what not to do next, and then just move forward. And so when you're breeding people like that inside your organization, for example, if you're a company that is, $5 million and you don't have a strong integrator presence and you're at that plateau of your business because you're very visionary led. There's a lot of, there's good culture around because of the vision that you're driving, but you're experiencing burnout, or you're experiencing people kind of, leaving you here and there because you're not really seeing that next growth phase for people to be able to go into, because people want to grow. That's like anybody in life, human, whether you're in, in the professional field of finance or sales or marketing or anything, like, doesn't matter what you do, you want to grow. So I guess to answer your question as best I can, you're probably not going to be able to find those people just walking on the streets, finding that, hey, that person has all this different, vast bit of knowledge to cover all the metrics of business, the way you need to understand all that goes. It's more of someone that has a desire within your organization that is a little bit OCD, a little bit perfectionist, a little bit of the like details nerd, that you get that type of person in there and can grow, help nurture them through understanding all the different pieces of the business. So that's one approach. And the second approach, obviously, is to, just continue to do your networking and find people that are usually coming out of the more corporate structure background, because people are used to structure when they are raised and grow in that. The trades business is unique because obviously there's a lot of guys that just kind of sling it and then they figure it out along the way. And usually well-established corporate companies, they have those systems in place. So
yeah, I appreciate that you say raise them up within the organization, because I think that leads to a better culture. It seems like, and you tap somebody and throw a big salary at them, it's going to create a weird rift.
Yep.
Especially if you're not like, you don't have a bunch of investment or whatever. And it's so much context, right? Like a good integrator, I feel like, has so much context on everything going on. Like, you can't just immediately get context. It takes a while to understand all the dynamics in a particular company, even if you're super smart. So I think that just having a lot of context on everything going on makes a great integrator.
Yeah, and I want to speak to what you said just a little bit about you brought up a great point, which was about kind of in putting someone in that role that's an outsider. How does that jive? I was put there very recently with roofing.com. And so one of the things that I tell people, because obviously visionaries in general are people that are very driven entrepreneurs. They want to move fast. They don't really care about the collateral effects that happen. They just want to move fast. They want to be profitable. They want to, they want to grow. They want to grow the empire, right? But when you do that, when you bring someone into the fold that isn't native to the company and hasn't been in the company for a while, obviously there's companies out there that are just getting started, and like, what's an integrator, and they're doing $1 million, 2 million, whatever, they're making it work, and they aren't experiencing the seniority problems or the people problems yet. But when you get to a place where you have people, one of the things that you mentioned, which was like, bringing people up versus bringing them from the outside in. One of the things that I coach on and really tell people very sternly as integrators, that you have to make the interpersonal connections and ensuring that you're putting, again, people first when you first come in those doors, and almost in a way kind of ask for the permission through the effectiveness of the work ethic and the things that you're bringing to the company when you first come in to the fold. It's not to come in and like wreck shop and change everything and make sure everything's fine-tuned and systemized, all that sort of stuff. You do that, you cause culture shock. People want to leave, people get pissed off, whatever. So my way is, and it's not like it's a bait and switch ordeal. It's a very organic and authentic transition. Is as you start integrating someone from outside of your organization, it's going to take that role. That's going to be the person that is leading the people, leading the processes, leading all of the different departments. You have to make sure that you do it the right way as the visionary, introducing them through edification, is, obviously is important. But then also through the fact that they, as the integrator, are coming in with the right attitude and the right mentality, which is that I'm here to get to know these people first. I'm here to build those relationships first so that they trust me. And that's exactly what I did with roofing.com. And that's why we grew so fast and went so quickly with some of the initiatives we were working on, is because I gained their trust very, very fast. And they knew that I was in their corner before I was in anybody else's corner. And I wasn't trying to do things out of selfish desire. I wanted them to be able to see the fruits of the labor that they were putting in. They just needed a little bit more guidance. You know what I mean? So.
we don't need to spend a ton of time on this, but can you be an integrator and a visionary at the same time? And if if you can, or what are the drawbacks?
Yeah, great question. So yes, you can. I think I forget where it's said. Maybe it was said in one of the books that that Gino Wickman wrote, but because I know that's kind of his coined phrase, but something along the lines of you can be both, but you're usually better at one or the other, right? Just naturally.
Yeah.
Now, I've fought this really, really hard because I think that I have great vision and I know what I want to reap out of business and personal life, et cetera. But I also kind of get to where I'm the type of person that also wants to be able to see the work done and do the day-to-day, people, processes, systems. Yes, you can. What I explain to people is that the visionary integrator, um, the dynamic, sure, but the actual personality of what that makes it, what that person, what their makeup is, are they a visionary or are they an integrator? It's a continuum. It's not necessarily one or the other. Like, it's not a black and white thing. So obviously you ask the question, like, can you be both? Yes. That if you're far on this side as your visionaries and far on this side as your integrators, and like the people that are absolutely like by the book, don't care to do your integrators that are usually like that, though, are usually a little more entrepreneurial. They're not they're not a true entrepreneur. So they're usually the people that they don't want to be taking the risk. They just want to do the work and have that guidance. So that polarizing effect is really, really healthy. When you could get a company that has a strong visionary that's had to do some integration so they understand and empathize with it, but then they also don't, really want to do anything with it anymore because they found that person. That's usually when things are very successful. You have this continuum. So if you're kind of a visionary that is more, in this, like if you said, hey, dead center is like you're a little bit of both, or you are a lot of bit of both. You want to make sure that you're establishing, when you establish a partnership or you go into business with somebody that is a visionary and you're an integrator, or vice versa, that you understand the tendencies of both individuals, and to understand that you need that counterbalance. So if you're kind of mid-center and he's mid-center, or he or she is mid-center, then it's usually better that way, because then you can understand enough about each other. But if you got someone that's really visionary and then you're kind of like, in the middle, usually I found you usually have more problems, because you're battling against this, like, hey, I don't want to let the visionary piece go, and yet this guy doesn't understand at all what I'm dealing with because he just wants to move fast, right, or whatever. So that's kind of the way that I explain it. But yeah, you absolutely can. I think you're just always usually better at one or the other, so.
I appreciate that. So that kind of leads into my next question, which is, what are some of the common problems that come up with in between a visionary and integrator? What have you seen? Like, let's say like roofing companies in particular, like what have you seen come up, like where there's battles or infighting or things happening?
Yeah. The first and the thing that is the visionary integrator relationship is unique, but the one thing that will completely destroy it is lack of communication. So that's the first and foremost important thing. Where you find that they fail is that they don't communicate, that they want to essentially overbear. One wants to overbear the other, right? You have someone that thinks that they know best for the organization. You got another one person that thinks they know best for the organization, but ultimately, usually one person has the upper hand, whether that be equity or whether it just be something that they feel like they know better, right? And then when you're not willing to be self-aware and you're not willing to understand that there's usually more forces in play than which, I'm saying this obviously from an integrated perspective, but there's certainly plenty of flaws that I could have if I'm, if I'm more narrow-minded on something and I'm not seeing the bigger picture and I'm just getting in the weeds with something too much. Like, that can usually be the tendency of an integrator, is you're not seeing the bigger picture. You're in the day-to-day and you're just working in the weeds, but you don't understand this other big opportunity that we have if we decide to make a quick pivot with something, right? So
Hey,
yeah.
kind of reminds me of bands, like you got a singer and then they think like the guitar player or something is interchangeable.
Yeah.
and then they try to like swap it out and the band like falls. Like you got to watch that. And what, do you think some visionaries think that the integrator is exchangeable?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you find is usually visionaries, they're just, and I'm not saying this because I have that tendency too, but they're just one track minded. It's like at whatever cost it is, we need to get to the finish line.
That's how I feel. I personally am that type. So you can say anything and I'll probably both relate and feel a little offended, but it's probably true.
I'm sorry. Well, and I have those tendencies too. So I'll say that, I think for me, my counterbalance is I always have to make sure that it is my second nature to put people first. So I always try to balance that dynamic, but that element, what you just explained right there, where you're saying, hey, is it something where you're interchangeable and you're just kind of dispensable if you aren't willing to kind of get on board? It does happen. And I think a lot of times what you find is that your visionary that believes that the integrator is just kind of, they're almost just manning the operation, but not really in the fine details of everything. You can find that's not necessarily true, and then find out that things start to kind of, not necessarily fall apart, but you find that things start to go by the wayside, or stuff starts getting, forgot about. So you have to understand that those people, once you get them in your organization, that they don't, that those people are a consistent pulse for your company. Because those, I'm not saying like in an organization with like the CEO is a visionary and the COO is an integrator, I'm not saying that they're more important than the CEO, but they're certainly cause more of a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So that's why organizations, if you look at, big companies, big tech companies or any sort of, corporate company, usually there's a CEO carousel. It's not as much a COO carousel. And the reason being is because
they burn hot and they burn
out.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, and there's a very big ripple effect if the operational person is put out, because then obviously you get a domino effect of some issues. So I want to answer your question directly that, that's certainly something that you'll find in businesses that they look at them as dispensable or replaceable. If you find that they're not doing what you want them to do. But what I'll always tell people, especially folks that are more just, hey, whatever it takes type of minds, take care of your people and invest in your people, because they're going to get you where you want to go. Right. I mean, that's the key to the game, unless you're going to do it all by yourself. You can do it all by yourself and be a public figure, or some sort of like really a good marketer for a good period of time. But the thing is you have to have a team always, going to need a team. So
it's hard to move fast. I mean, it's hard to really do anything of substance without good people on your team, for sure. I mean, like it's certainly, a temptation for some visionary people to just go like the influencer route or whatever. So what are some things like as specific as you feel comfortable going to, like staying on the same page? Because you mentioned that's so important between the visionary and the integrator. So is there like a meeting pulse for the week that you've seen work in the past, or what are the types of things that keep these two types of people on the same page and make sure that everything's going in the same direction?
Yeah, so that's a great, so there's a thing that, so obviously meeting pulse, if you're an EOS guy, and obviously you know that those are extremely important. I have kind of a multitude of different framework, EOS like frameworks that I've been exposed to and have kind of gravitated toward certain ideologies and certain methods.
Share your ideology. We're at the end of the podcast, so say however you feel.
Well, no. I'm not saying anything's wrong with a meeting pulse and making sure that you're having everybody on the same page. But those typically, there's a couple things. One, a lot of times those meetings aren't well attended by visionaries, because visionaries hate meetings. That's kind of like the right. So a lot of times you struggle with. Sorry if I called you out there. I don't know if that's a thing.
No, once again, really calling me out here. Like I'm just thinking about me not attending meetings. They are boring, man.
So the thing is, though, is that you have this, this desire as a visionary to institute your own and put forth your own opinions and your own methods of which you think is the best route to be able to get something done, because you want to move fast and you think this is the fastest way or whatever, right? That's typically how it goes. Well, then when they're not in that meeting, or it's at least not well attended on a regular basis, and you're not in the day-to-day cycle, then that's when you start having conflict. That's another reason why you have a conflict with your operational person, with your integrator. So there's something called the align meeting that I've started to institute with some of our clients. And basically what it is it's a 60-minute just CEO and COO, or just a visionary and integrator, or whatever you want to call it, just them two once a week, 60 minutes. And then what that does is it basically allows for you, and you can execute the same type of meeting pulse if you want, in terms of like kind of the schedule of that meeting and the things to be accomplished. The biggest thing and most important thing to know is, as an integrator, is what does the visionary want, and what would they like to see? And then just basically listen for 60 minutes and obviously provide your rebuttal and feedback as needed, but to try to just understand how they see things, and to try to provide some sort of perspective and set proper expectations around what you think is going to be most effective from your day-to-day point of view, right? So an align meeting is just essentially getting in alignment with one another once a week, 60 minutes. And I know it's a long period of time, but an hour goes by quick. I mean, and when you're working through things, obviously visionaries have tendencies to be thinking about multitude of things. I'm guilty of it too. I have a little bit of that myself, where it's like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, whatever. Okay, cool. Well, then in that 60 minutes you're spending together, usually what happens is they end up talking about a multitude of other ideas. And then once you kind of get in the flow of doing those week in, week out, it'll kind of flush a lot of that like new idea energy out. And then it's like, okay, here's where we're at. These are the realistic things that we can get done and we need to get done. And how would you like to see those things executed? And the reason why you essentially have that type of partnership is because you need to respect, as the integrator, respect the visionary just as much as you expect the same in return from them, is that you both want the same thing. You both want the same outcome. You just both have different methodologies and process by which you go to do that. And so you just have to be able to have those once a week meetings. And then obviously the keeping the team in check, those meeting pulses, or running some sort of like weekly win meeting, all of that stuff is extremely important. Another thing that I usually tell folks that are integrators that are trying to get some more, like, not necessarily more frequent touch, because once a week is plenty if you're actually solving things within that meeting, but integrators, in terms of providing clarity and understanding kind of some commitments from the teams and the departments, is just scheduling like a really quick 10-minute briefing that happens at the beginning of every day. It's just a standing in meeting. Obviously, if you're like a virtual company or something like that, it's a little different. But just like if you're in an office or you're out and about, is basically just meeting with the heads of your departments for 10 minutes each day. And then that way you can kind of get an idea of what needs to be accomplished, and then maybe help provide some feedback or some insight of what they can do to help expedite that if you feel like there's a better method of approach. And then also just being able to kind of get that accountability so that people know, okay, I'm committing that this week or this day or whatever, that I'm going to go through and actually get this stuff done, so that the company can move forward.
Awesome. All right, my man. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground today on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know I already mentioned this, but we are planning on doing some kind of integrator mastermind for our clients. So each of the visionaries will have an opportunity to send a integrator and get some coaching. So I'm hoping that you'll be a guest speaker on one of those. I think you'd be very helpful. And I also just want to proliferate this idea of integrator more in roofing. I think more people need to know this is a thing, and to get one, or to help the one that they already have get the help they need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And thank,
so, yeah, go ahead.
thank you. No, I was going to say, thank you for having me too, man. I mean, obviously I'm willing to help any way I can with the education around that. So go ahead.
Yeah. So hardline roofing, is it roofing and solar? Hardline
Solar,
roofing and
yeah,
solar?
it's hardline solar and roofing, but it don't matter either way.
Okay. Hardline solar and roofing, check them out. I'm sure it will do multi-million the first year. You know, we're
Should
going to do
do.
some stuff.
We'll see.
What's that?
Yeah, we'll see. I said we should. We'll see.
All right. I like that. And then talk to me about contractor network real quick. I know that that's something that you're working on right now. How can, when will people be able to check it out and just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, contractor network .app. It is actually an application based ecosystem. I'm trying to kind of consolidate it in the best way I can to kind of give you the elevator pitch real quick. But essentially, it's to help folks collaborate with more of a community based tool, getting off of Facebook and having a lot more of like a vetted community that is really geared toward being able to get the information and the knowledge that they need within specific avenues, whether it be retail, insurance work, commercial work, learning how to integrate solar or whatever. But it's not just specific to roofing. It's going to be for multiple niches. We're going to start in the roofing and solar space. And then we're going to kind of work our way through as we build out the different versions. But essentially kind of creating a tiered approach to consulting. So you can get the information you want, low touch, low barrier of entry, do something like $97 a month, something like that, to actually get quality information from folks that are very well known in this industry, but then of course, across all niches as we build it out. And then to be able to create different levels of like kind of a mastermind level, and then being able to do some one-on-one consulting as well. The goal with it being that we grow a community of strong, healthy, systematic businesses that can eventually be propped up and ready to be sold to a PE or publicly traded company, or something that could allow for them to have that type of exposure, the due diligence process already gone through because they have the correct financial processes in place. They have all the things that we're teaching are basically built around the 4 buckets, right? So the marketing, the sales, the operations, and the finance is all fine-tuned in that process. So a lot of things to come. I'm really excited about it. I've got a partner with that. His name's Garrett Bake. So he's a guy from the mastermind and consulting background as well. But it's kind of collaborating and colliding 2 worlds to be able to build something that I think is really going to be really special. And folks like Cook Agency and some others be able to collaborate and to get involved with and kind of be the preferred partner, to be able to have folks that are delivering quality tools to contractors. So that's kind of the whole shebang.
I love to hear anything to do with community and creating more, kind of modernizing the construction industry. I mean, I'm all about championing that stuff. So I appreciate you being on. Say the .app one more time.
Yeah, contractornetwork.app. It's just right now, it's just like a coming soon website, but it will be.
What's the timeline?
So for version 1 should be out in less than 30 days. I actually was just finalizing my submission was finalized with my submission was finalized with the App Store 2 days ago. I'm waiting on review. Sometimes that can be a little bit finicky, but things are ready. And then version 2 will have a lot more algorithmic and analytical based data. We're not trying to be a CRM. We're not trying to do anything. We're not trying to compete in that market. And there's a lot of great solutions out there. We're just trying to create very good tools around very sound methodology that can help people get the results they want to get from basically creating it to where it's super simple. They have on-demand content like golf courses in there and stuff like that too, that they can learn, but then we also have a tool that they could use that can kind of do it all for them. So that's kind of the idea of it.
So somewhere a little bit after Valentine's Day 2022 would probably be up on the App Store, everyone. So check it out if you're listening after that. And man, thank you so much for hanging out. I mean, I just want to soak up more information on how to get visionaries and integrators better communication, better systems. So man, thank you so much for hanging out, and it's good to know you. Thank you for being on.
Tim, appreciate you, brother. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching. It's hookagency.com, and see you next time.